as I said that the government main task, I would have expected how government would reduce the debt burden. The government has to forego the culture of borrowing money to repay money, and I would have expected a roadmap how government would reduce debt burden. Secondly, I would have expected from the government a roadmap, because this government cannot really implement those, but the government could always come up with a suggestion that this is the way forward in terms of reduction of tax avoidance, tax evasion, and all those processes that has allowed the previous deposed regime to engage in capital flight through over and under invoicing. So, I would have expected that what is the process, what would be a strategy, because this is an interim government. You cannot expect for an interim government to do this, but what we could have expected that reduction in damage. Then the third thing that we would have expected the government is really coming up with a strategy that benefits or that reverse the income erosion of the low income people. But what we have seen that there has been some increase in some allowances in certain areas, but we didn't see a fragmented, politically motivated, erroneous hundreds social safety nets in the same way that has been there. The government could have said that these are the strategies that would reduce the error, both inclusion and exclusion error, so that it goes to the intended people, because the earlier one was politically motivated. Those who are not supposed to be there, they are there. Those who are supposed not to be there, they are there. So, that should have been the idea, and then creating a roadmap so that the next government, because as we say, what Professor Yunus has been saying, that election could happen and between December and June, which means that the next government would be could be within this fiscal year. So, I would have expected a discussion by the political parties that, and that should be, if the election happens this, how would they really have a budget that could really address the moot questions, both structural questions and immediate questions. And I would like to see political parties having that discussion. How would they address this employment question? How would they address investment question? How would they address revenue mobilization question? How would they address debt servicing questions? So, we would like to see, and unfortunately there is hardly any discussion or debate about how the economy would be taken to its take-off stage, because the political parties might be in government within this next fiscal year. So, that also raises another fundamental question, which is that why didn't the interim government discuss the whole budget with the political parties? Because if the election is held between December and June, then they would inherit this budgetary system. So, we should have expected that the government should have had a discussion with all political parties to come up with a consensus on the principles of the budget. Yes, the government has said that they would have a 30 days discussion. But one has to really keep in mind, what is budget? Budget is entirely a political document, because if you really look at the constitutional provision of every country in the world, its demand for grant. What does it mean? Demand for grant means it's the money to be allocated for the owners of the republic. So, as the practice suggests, when the finance minister presents the budget to the parliament, then there is a discussion. Yes, there are flaws with the existing constitutional process, but then every grant is voted in. Then you have a finance act, then you have a appropriation. So this process means that, and if we are looking at American Revolution, no taxation without representation. That's the hallmark of the budgetary process. So which means a budget must be done in consultation, which means in a parliamentary democracy they are delegated representative, so that it's people's money, it has to be spent for the people and it has to be spent by the authority of the people. That was missing because of the unique nature of the government, because there is no parliament. But what I would have expected, and that would have reduced a lot of talk, and that is a missed opportunity, I would rather say, to force consensus amongst the political parties, because these would really had the potential of strengthening the ties amongst the political parties and citizens who participated in July uprising, because July uprising is all about democratization. So this could have been a democratization exercise. Unfortunately, we have not seen that, but I would like to see that the current administrations invite also political parties to have a discussion if they want, or anyway, that's a missed opportunity, because it's already announced. If you are seeking feedback, that would be very little to accommodate, but that could have been. But what I really want to see, a forward looking exercise, 3 areas. Number 1, I would like to see that political parties are coming up, if they are in government, a 100-day program or something program. Secondly, how would they deal with the structural issues? Thirdly, how would they really enhance fiscal capacity through further revenue mobilization? And how would they pursue and bring the economy back to the track where our aspirations of both 1971 and 2024 can be achieved? So that requires a serious understanding on what should be the constitutional reforms on the budgetary process, because even the current system lacks participation, active representation, oversight of the public accounts. So we need concrete proposals for democratization of budgetary process. Secondly, we would like to see that political parties are coming up with how, when they got elected, how are they going to address both structural and immediate concerns. And third, I would like to see that there is a shift from this fragmented, erroneous process of social safety net to a rights-based, life cycle oriented social safety net under an umbrella. Then obviously everyone is interested to see increased expenditure for quality education as well as technical and vocational education, so that there is a enough supply of skills to meet not only the industry demand, but also to increase our remittance. Then I would like to look at why the GDP growth rate has decreased, because the hard hit sector is agriculture. The GDP has declined higher at agriculture. So, I would like to see rural development, agriculture takes a different shape. Fourth and foremost, we would like to see a concrete employment strategy. Then we would, and that is most important, Bangladesh economy is driven by private sector. We would like to see how investment would go up, or for ordinary citizens different financial products, so that not only capital market get energized, but also ordinary citizens gets avenues for increasing their savings behavior and then invest in different financial products. Then financial sector is in disarray, both capital market as well as banking system. We would like to see that structural cause, which is that banks borrow short term deposit while they have to lend for a long term, which is a structural bottleneck. So, we would like to see how could the businesses could access credit for medium term and long term. So, not only the energization in capital market, but also other windows. And finally, what we need is how do you ensure that these oligarchic practices in terms of revenue administration, giving subsidies in the form of, say, for example, capacity charge payment, or relaxed rules that allows misinvoicing. So, under invoicing and over invoicing allowing capital flight, then multinationals are playing with their country and other country. So, we need to see transfer pricing. We need to also, I am sure they could come up with a strategy, because as the world practices suggest that if there is a odious debt, because the debt was taken to reinforce an authoritarian regime, US used this idea in terms of Iraq. So, the government could request United Nations Secretary General to review our debt. And finally, and most importantly, we want to live in a livable world. So, which means how do you ensure green growth? How do you address climate change? How do you address urbanization? How do you address that your air quality is improved? How do you ensure that your rivers are not encroached? How do you ensure that? Because this is all about not only having a living planet for ours, but also for our next generation. So, there could be ideas of green taxation, there could be ideas of having rural industrialization, which is agro based, that has not been there. Then that could also reduce, so that why people migrate? Because of the jobs. So, you have to create jobs at the rural areas. So, and then we want to see that there are more agro processing, there are more returns to farmers, there could be, we also need a rights based healthcare system where everyone has a doctor and there is a referral system. We also need to see that what kind of subsidy that farmers would be getting.
For more update, follow us on Facebook, subscribe our YouTube channel, get the latest update on www.daily-sun.com.